Okay, everyone, let's welcome Liz Wheat. She is a
Hi.
comedian and a sex addiction therapist.
Mhm.
So, not only does she have an interesting career, but what led her to that is probably a few interesting stories we're going to hear all about. I am going to learn along with everyone else because I don't know all that much about your history, just a little bit, a few tidbits. So, I'll be learning along with everyone else, which is fun for me. So,
Yeah,
background. But first, tell us how long you've been sober and how old you were when you got sober.
I am. Wait, I think I'm 19 years sober. Yeah, that's hard.
I
Like
like
I
that you don't know.
got,
I'm not
I know
counting
my
the day.
sobriety. My sobriety date is November 19th, 2006. Does that make me 19 years sober? Yes.
Yes, it
Or
does.
no, 18, gonna be 19. So 18 years,
Pretty
right?
close, yeah.
Yeah. So 18 years sober. I got sober at 27 years old.
Oh,
27
close.
club. Took a
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. And you lived. So
I
I was
lived.
29, so that's relatively young.
Yeah, yeah. I got sober in Los Angeles. That was great. Did not intend, I went there to like make it, and that didn't happen. But I mean, I had fun and whatever, did all the things. But I was there for like 3 months before basically like I was like burning it down and like needed to get sober. I didn't, and I like I did have like a burning bush moment where like God talked to me and it was like, you're gonna die within the year if you don't get sober. And I was like, oh my God, really? But and then yeah, just quit drinking.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I'd love to hear more about that if you want to share, but was it just like a voice in your head or?
I mean, there was like a kind of crazy. I picked up my friend from getting her wisdom teeth pulled out and met the doctor and was like, woo, and like it was like woke up just when I remember I kept like going out and like being like, okay, I'm not gonna drink tonight. And also I moved to LA literally, okay, it was kind of because of The Secret. Like I was like somewhat high functioning, but also because of like I was, credit cards and like what I mean, I don't know. Like I was like had moment like I was applying for jobs and I was somewhat functioning. And so before that I had done the what is it called? The Artist Way. And it was before I moved to LA. I was actually living in Canada and I did the artist way and you know how they're like, oh, leap and the net will appear. And so like I was gonna move from Canada to LA. I had no savings. And I remember I talked to my brother Alex and he was like, you need $8,000 to move to LA. And I was like, I don't know where he got that number, but I was like, oh, I got it. Like I'm good. And then like I was taking the class and got two credit cards mailed to me or offers for 4,000 each. And I was like, the universe
It's a
provides.
sign. Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm supposed to. And so it was like a mix of like new age and drinking and just like, yay, like that's where I'm going.
I would have thought the same thing. I'm still sitting here. I'm thinking, yeah, that was a sign.
I
Like, come
know.
on, what are the odds?
I know. And I do think like me getting in debt helped me because I eventually, worked Debtors Anonymous. And that helped me to like, heal my relationship with money and like my family's, generational trauma with money and all of the things. And so I'm kind of like, did God or whoever the universe like make me go through that so that I would eventually work on that? I don't know. But like I got the cards. I was like, cool, bye, and like moved to
And
LA.
and you moved there to become a comedian or an actress or both?
Acting at that time. And and then I ended up doing comedy. I started comedy like 2 years later, I think. And then, but yeah, moved there, the, you know, 3 months, like spent the money, I mean, spent the debt or maxed out the credit cards. and was just like, whatever, going down in flames. And I remember, I went out with that guy because I was like, oh, I need a hamburger. Like I want dinner. And so I was like, sure, I'll go on a date with you. And then I was like, oh, but I was like, I can't drink. I can't drink. I can't drink. And I'd had some bottoms before. Like I had a bottom at like, I think 23, where there was a lot of like it was actually like a worse, I think, chemical bottom before, like where it was like Adderall, cocaine, diet pills, alcohol, like, not eating and like not doing well. And then like I kind of was able to like stop and like get healthy. And that time before was like through like a therapy, and I started taking acting classes, and I was able to like stop for a while. And then so in LA, it was more of like the spiritual like bottom, although there was still a lot of drinking, or I finally was like, I cannot stop. Like I couldn't, like every time I'd be like, no, 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 not gonna, and then boom, just drunk. And then I'd wake up in like a horrible dark situation. And that time, like I woke up like with that guy, and let's edit this out. But anyway,
Oh, we've all
it,
been there. I mean, I'm sorry, but if when your drinking days, you didn't wake up with some guy that was hot when you were drinking and gross when you woke up, I don't think you were a real alcoholic.
yeah,
We've
yeah.
all been, I know, let me speak for me. I've been there more than once.
Yeah. And like woke up, and he was I remember his house was like, I mean, he had like house, it was in Brentwood, but it was just like blank. There was like nothing in it. And he was watching a porn. And I just remember I was like looking at the woman doing the porn, and like she like looked at me, and it was just this like weird, and I almost saw like a tear coming down her eye. And then I was like, I'm no different than you. And it was like this moment. And then I like looked in the mirror, and it was like, I was just like, I'm gonna kill myself. Like, and then I had a friend here, still friends with her. I saw her last night. We had met in acting class, and she had 3 years of sobriety when I met her, and she was young. And I'll just say her name, Leslie Santa Cruz, and does acting in town. And she, yeah, had 3 years, and I remember like I called her, and she was like, "Okay, yeah." She'd already kind of recognized like that I had a problem, but she was like, she had me call a friend of hers who told me to go. I've still never met this woman. Told me to go to Hollywood Late Night, which was like, I don't. Have you ever heard of that?
No. Is that a meeting? A group?
Yeah, it's a meeting. I don't know if they still have it in LA, but it was above a liquor store. It was in a theater on La Brea, and it was like notoriously. She told me, she was like, "Oh, there's a bunch of actors there, and they throw chairs at each other." And like to me, I was like, "Oh, fun!" Like I was like, oh, like they're expressive and whatever. I don't know why I was like, oh, like I just like pictured like Robert Downey Jr. and like Lindsay Lohan like throwing a chair at me, and I was like, oh, fun. That will be so fun. And
That would
so
be.
yeah, I was like, cool. So I go, and I didn't see any famous people there, but it was like okay, it's a meeting where people will share their stories, and then like other people like heckle them from the from the audience. Like as they're sharing, they'll be like whore or whatever. And I was in and like I loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then there was like this couple like literally dry humping in the corner, making out. This is a very unconventional meeting. And then and I just like my brain was like awesome. I felt calm. Um and this guy, I luckily, sitting in the meeting, and this guy walked past me, kind of like more well dressed. Like everybody kind of did look homeless except for this guy, and he was cute. That didn't hurt, and which is where the love addiction comes in for me, because yeah, he was nice to me, and he goes, "Hey, there are other meetings." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I knew because my parents had both been in and out of AA when I was growing up, so I was like, I know they're not all like this, but he was like, yeah, hey, there's other meetings, and we chatted, and then he took me to my second meeting, and I was like, you know in love. And then just kept going to meetings because I was like, oh, I'll run into them or I'll like, so like my love addiction helped me get sober
Yeah.
in that aspect.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah,
very,
that's interesting because, I switched addictions immediately. I mean, I had an eating disorder. 6 months after I quit drinking, I quit smoking, and immediately, almost overnight, developed an eating disorder that was
oh,
completely out of control within a month. And for the first 2 years, it just complete just because you can't, it was so hard because you can't just quit food, right? You
yeah.
have to take that monster out of its cage 3 times a day. But I was a workaholic. I was a workoutaholic. I had the money thing. First, I hoarded money insanely. I was making $1,000 a day, and I was clipping coupons like a crazy person. I
Mhm.
was oh, and then I had a spending addiction. I was changing the way I felt by spending everything I had, every dime I'd ever made, and then some. I know I'm missing some. I didn't have a gambling addiction because I left Vegas in time probably. And I won't say I had sex addiction, although I definitely could see how that could happen as sort of borderline in my head. I was obsessed with
Mhm.
sex. It was a constant thought. I just didn't act on it all that much. But we switch
Yeah.
addictions, right?
Yeah.
And because I was like you, I wanted a relationship like within a week. I wanted to at least start dating, and thank God no one wanted to date me for 2 years. I don't know about you.
Well,
Did you date early on?
yeah. So basically, about 2 weeks after I was sober, and a friend of mine, a guy friend, called me out of the blue. He'd gotten my number from another friend, and we had done theater in high school together, had made out, a couple times, whatever.
As you do.
And as you, of course. And he called me and he was like, hey, I heard you live in LA. I'm living in LA. You want to go out for Mexican? And like, this is what flashes in my head. I'd seen him during break, on a break coming back home, which I grew up part of the time in Milwaukee. And so yeah, I'd been home and the last time I'd seen him, he was drunk, uh peeing naked, peeing in a pool, and clearly like he had alcohol. He was like just gnarly, and he'd been this like hot actor soccer guy in high school, and I was like, what happened to that guy, whatever. And then so that image flashes when he asked me out, and then I go, yeah, let's. I'd love to have Mexican. And so he picks me up, and then I get in the car, and I'm like, I go, oh, I want to tell you, I love Mexican food, and I also love margaritas, but I'm 2 weeks sober, and so I can't have margaritas. And then he was like, oh, I'm 3 years sober. And then in my mind, I was like, oh, we're getting married. Like, done. Like, husband. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's where I go. And then he did become my like boyfriend in sobriety right away. And then, but, I kind of think it was okay at the time because I was like such a people pleaser. I was very naive. Like it was like I got sober and then my brain, like I really think I was about like 14 mentally, like in LA. And I do like um guys would be like, "Hey, let's meet at a coffee shop or whatever and like read the big book or whatever." And but and I'd be like, "Yeah," and it'd be like this really like dangerous, like predatory guy, like now looking back. And I remember one time it specifically happened, and then this somehow, like, he was like, oh, let's take my car. And then all of a sudden I was like out to dinner with this guy, and I called David, the guy I was dating at the time, and I was like, I fucked up. Like, you got to come and get me. And like, but I was so like, yeah, okay. And like, I just think I really, like, in LA, I was like, kind of like, I protected like the whole time. I mean, besides like right in the beginning, but I mean, like from I don't know, just certain things. Like I think it was good to have this, like, even though you're not supposed to get into a relationship your first year, like I think it was good that I kind of had like my high school, friend or
For
whatever.
sure, for sure. And I honestly, I always take a little issue with that edict that you're not supposed to get in a relationship your first year, because the truth is that's not in the big book. Therefore,
Right.
it's not technically part of the program. Now, is it good advice? Probably.
Yeah.
Certainly was for me. And I would have ignored it. I would have ignored it in a heartbeat. Nobody wanted to get in a relationship with me. But I have seen people early in sobriety end up in a relationship where they end up getting married, right? So
Yeah.
you just never really know. I think for most of us, we're a little bit too messed up. But again, like look at you. If some sponsor had taken upon themselves to dictate your dating life or your abstinence, whatever, that would have been, I think, inappropriate. It's not in the big book. It's a good suggestion, but you meant if you had followed it, you might not have had that protection, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. So I feel like I made all these like kind of like crazy bad decisions, but then they like turned out to be good.
yeah, yeah.
Or yeah. So yeah,
So do you dated this guy for how long?
we dated a year, and then after that, I was kind of like, I was like at the end of the year, I was like, oh, I don't want to marry him, and we broke up.
Oh. And what was it like dating him? Was he had 3 years sober, you were newly sober. Do you feel like you had good boundaries, that you were you able to be? So I talk a lot about in the book that I just wrote, that is a lot about sex and dating and sobriety. Um, my biggest issues were I wasn't able to be vulnerable. I was terrified of getting rejected. So I would date unavailable men, logistically unavailable, legally unavailable, emotionally unavailable, right? And then slowly, I sort of started accepting that rejection was part of dating, or at least the risk of rejection, right? And so I started allowing myself to get to open up more and to get close and kind of go into a dating relationship where I'm like, well, you may get to know me and reject me, but that's okay. I'll be fine. There'll be somebody else. I won't take it too personally, right? So I learned how to be vulnerable, and then I learned how to be authentic, where I was able to more state my wants and needs and let my true self out, my my silliness, my quirkiness, my insecurities, whatever. And then also then eventually I learned boundaries, but none of this I knew in the beginning. And I always like to think of vulnerability, authenticity, and boundaries as 3 of the most important dating and relationship skills. So if you're newly sober and he's got 3 years, I mean, maybe he was a really, really good guy, but do you feel like you knew what you were doing in that relationship? Or were you authentic, first of all, because you're 27, you feel like you're 14. Do you even
Right.
know how to state your wants and needs in that relationship?
Well, so he was 3 years sober, hated AA. He hated AA, and he wasn't going to a lot of meetings, so dry. And I also he was kind of like overly mothered. He also had a trust fund, and so there was a lot of like, yeah, just things. So I noticed in that relationship, I didn't realize it at the time, but like, yeah, a lot of like putting his needs first and mothering him and like boundary issues. And I would kind of like say it because so we started dating, and I had while drinking was going to or had gone to massage school. There was like a 3-month massage school there, and I was in the process of getting my license. And so like I got that, and like what else did I and I was like caregiving. I was doing a bunch of different jobs, and like he didn't have to work all day, and like went to acting classes. And I was like and then so I'd be like, I'm tired, or like, or I think one time I remember he like did start to like work for somebody who had an eBay business, and I remember like I picked out a couple of things, and he made a lot of money on it. And so then he was like, I want you to pick out the stuff. And I know that I said stuff, but I didn't come at it from a DA perspective, but I was figuring out like, I was like, well, you need to pay me, or like, this is a time, or I don't know. Or then I remember we picked out a bunch of stuff, and he was like, oh, you're really good at spending my money. And there was like a money thing. And then he had like I remember I would be like, I really wanted to go to the Beverly Hills Hotel. Like I was like, oh, I want to go. And I had to like beg him to take me. And then like he was like, I don't feel like I deserve to be here. And I was like, well, I do. I make money. And so I paid for it. So I like paid for every, or like we didn't stay there, but we ate there. And like, I'm like, why am I with like 17 jobs paying for this? And he's like just chilling. So like things that I did in that relationship, yeah, I would do that would not happen today.
Yeah.
And yeah, just definitely like time and money boundaries. And there was a lot of like kind of like shaming around like money, and and that was weird. And I didn't know how to like verbalize it. I kind of did. I was doing it, but didn't what didn't have that DA Al-Anon, or codependence perspective. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I just knew I was like, this is not working. Bye. And so that's kind of, yeah, I'll just be like, no, this is not working. Instead of like work on it, I was just like, see ya. Like, I'm going
That's
to have
great. I mean, that right there, that's a dating skill right there, is knowing when to end it, right? I never
yeah,
got very far in my relationship, so I never had to worry about how to end it. Usually they were ended for me. But
yeah.
that's actually a very high level relationship skill, is knowing when to end it and ending it. Yeah.
Well, I do question whether or not I ended things like if I could have been like, hey, this is something we need to work on, and are you willing to work on it?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it does like in one way, it's like, oh, it's like self-esteem for me to be like, bye. But then also like another thing he did that um he was like, oh, I feel really uncomfortable with you acting because I met this person who actually introduced me to this other lady. I had some of those like magical sobriety things where I was taking the classes with this woman named Sandra Seacat, who's like she's great. She's passed away now, but he was like jealous, and I'm like, how are you, like, this is like something that's my dream, and like you get to do it and take classes and do whatever you want, and you're like trying to like take that away from me. Like, why would, I don't know. And then I continued to date him like even after he did that. I wish at the time, I wish I would have just ended it right away, or just said what. I think I did speak up about that. I think I was like, what's the deal? I know that I did say, he said, I'm uncomfortable with that. Or he said, I don't know how I feel about that. And I said, it doesn't know how it feels about you either.
Yeah.
So I was sassy, but then I'd like stay, and so
Yeah.
that I wish, I hadn't done that.
It
But
does sound though that you were developing a certain level of self-respect. Like at least you were recognizing that some of this stuff wasn't, you know, honoring you. I mean, I feel like a lot of people in early sobriety, women especially, don't even recognize when they're being taken advantage of or taken for granted or being disrespected a little bit, right? And the other thing is, like, I don't know about you, but I had so much shame and self-loathing early on that even if I recognized it, even if I'd have been in a relationship early on, which I wasn't, it took me 10 years to get in a relationship. I don't think I would have I think I would have recognized poor treatment, but I don't know if I would have been able to do much about it. My communication skills weren't really good, but I also probably would have thought, do I deserve any better? Because that's, I don't know. I don't know where you were at when your first year sober, but do you feel like you just deserved better, or is that one of the reasons you stayed, even though you recognized he wasn't treating you that great?
I that's a good question. I don't um I do know there was a pattern of like recognizing that, like, oh, I don't like that, and then I would stay. And I'm not sure if it was, I don't know if I recognized like not feeling like I was worth it, just kind of like, I don't know what that was, just kind of like maybe being used to it, or just like, oh, this is okay, like suffering.
Or
I
the
don't.
good stuff, maybe the good stuff just outweighed the bad. Sometimes it's really simple, like, right now the good stuff outweighs the bad, and I don't want to go out and find somebody new. That's the mark of
Right,
the hand, right? Some
right. Yeah.
were you working the steps in that first year and going to meetings, or
Yeah, I mean, went to AA, had a great sponsor, was going through the steps, doing all the things. And so yeah. But then dun, 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 then year two happened. And I call that was the like terrible twos for me. Because I basically yeah, met someone who was unavailable, and he also, I mean, in many ways, and was in and out, relapsing on heroin, and yeah, real sexy,
you'd
and
have to be. If they're doing heroin, they're going to be really sexy because it's the only reason you're dating a guy who does heroin.
right, right. He was a musician too,
Of
and like
course, of course.
very, yeah. handsome guy. And like, it was that like met him immediate, like, woo, attraction. And yeah, got involved with him. And I luckily I had like become friends with all these guys, like very platonic, safe guys. They were all from Boston and they worked really good recovery. There was this one guy named Joe, and he had gone to the Meadows, Pia Melody and all the anyway, all the people who work on codependence. Anyway, he'd gone to like this rehab for codependence and like
Oh, okay.
he'd just done a shitload of work on himself, and he was just like had like 30 years of sobriety, except he'd gotten sober when he was 20, so he was 50. And he was just like, he met me and he was in my guy, or one of my guy friends was like, you got to meet my friend Joe, because they saw me kind of like acting out and like it was like going crazy. And he was like, you get over here because like you in danger, and so
You
happy.
in danger, girl.
Girl, you in danger. You in danger, girl. And so I met him, and he was also really into the Course in Miracles. You know that
Oh
with
yeah,
Gary.
I know The Secret. I know The Artist's Way. I know Course in Miracles. Three biggies in my sobriety as well. Yeah.
Yes. So he was explaining the course to me, and I got the book at that time at like a year and a half sober or whatever I was. Yeah. But I could, my brain was so crazy. It was like, I would read that. And he was like, eventually when your brain settles down, this will read like Jack and Jill goes up the hill or whatever. Like it'll start to start to make sense to you. Cause I would read it and I would like every like fifth line, I'd be like, oh, that I heard that. But
Yeah.
my brain was too like scrambled.
Yeah.
But he basically was like, you need to work SLAA and you need to go to CODA, or you've got some other stuff going on. Because I
Mhm.
really started to have a lot of unmanageability with like, yeah, the love addiction.
Yeah. So
And
SLAA is Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, and then CODA is.
Codependence Anonymous, which I never actually went to. I haven't found. I mean, I know there's only like one CODA meeting here, and then anyway, basically he was just like, you need to work on boundaries.
Mhm.
Because I was just like, falling in love with everybody and like
Yeah.
whatever. I still like at that time, like I just like went to an SLAA meeting, and then I eventually was able to like get away from that guy. I think I was going to Al-Anon. What happened was, basically I met him out. I was just, he was like, meet me in Las Vegas. He also sold watches, like really fancy watches. And
This is the musician.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I met, he was like, meet me in Las Vegas. So I met him out in Las Vegas, and he actually relapsed out there. Um, except I had not been around heroin, so I had no idea. He said, "Oh, I got food poisoning," and then I came back to LA, and my guy friends were like, "I was like, oh, I had this great time. Oh, I went to Las Vegas, da 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 da." And I was at that time, I was like I was trying to stay away from him, but like how that is, like it was not. Yeah. Anyway, and so went out there, and then came back, and I was like, oh, it's great. Oh, he got food poisoning, and they were like, oh, was his food poisoning like this? And they did like a reenactment for me. And like I was like, oh, yes. They did like the nodding out and the whole,
Yeah.
and so after that, that actually scared me. And because I think at one point he said something about me going out, and I was like, I don't like needles. I don't like pain.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, I'm good. And so then I was able to cut it off.
Uh-huh.
Um,
But what did you get out of that love addiction? Was it a sense of security, emotional security, or a sense of identity, or just was it the rush, the excitement? Was it the intimacy? Did you because I mean, just because somebody's on heroin doesn't mean they're not capable of gazing into your eyes and making you feel really seen, and vice versa. And I mean, what do people who get addicted to sex and love? I mean, those are two different things, but for you, was it mostly love or was it a combination? And what was the charge? What was like the thing that compelled you to get so attached so quickly?
I think it is what I've noticed when I get like that is I will feel like really like somebody is very attuned to me. Like, yeah, when he was very attuned, it
Mhm.
was like
That's,
really attuned and really nice.
yeah.
And
You feel seen.
yeah. And
Yeah.
he was a very sweet person. Like he wasn't mean at all.
Yeah.
I've had some mean ones, but he was not very he was very exciting. Um and
It's
yeah,
so interesting to me though, because I so desperately did not want to be seen. I mean, I wanted to be seen only the stuff that I wanted to show you. I didn't really want you to see the real me because I hated myself that much. And so I was looking for ways to date where I could date someone who doesn't really see me, and and then someone who has maybe that's why I wasn't a love addict. I didn't want to be seen. Maybe that's why I had so many. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm so fascinated by because it's this thing about switching addictions, or before we're really you know, emotionally healed, or at least on that path where we've worked through so much of our stuff. Um, uh, we just still have so many issues, and everybody's kind of trying to get their needs met in different ways. And it seems like you and I have a lot in common. We got sober around the same time, and or the same age, I would say. But we dated very differently. Yeah, it's
yeah.
fascinating. It's fascinating to me. Yeah, because I did not want to be seen at all. But I could see where you would want that, but I
Hmm.
couldn't let it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a combination of, I mean, with him, it was a combination of being seen and the excitement. Like it was that the electric
Yeah.
attraction.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because it takes a lot to kick in that dopamine. I had anhedonia for I don't even know how many years. I went to a concert, maybe my second year in sobriety, and it was Chicago, which is a band that I loved in growing up, and I loved Chicago, and I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel the music. Everybody's like holding their lighters up, and I'm just sitting there like feeling nothing. And I remember just bawling, thinking, "Oh my God." I can't feel anything. This is what it's. Nobody told me you have sometimes
Yeah.
you get anhedonia for a year or two or more, but it will usually go away. And nobody told me that. I had no idea. I think they probably know a little bit more about that now. But so yeah, anything like really exciting, which sex and hot musicians, yeah,
Yeah.
anything to get a little dopamine going was helpful.
Yeah. That'll do it.
And what was your relationship like with your father? Did you have a good relationship with your dad? Because sometimes I think that when women are able to get into relationships, uh generally they I think a lot of women who have attachment disorders or anxious attachment or avoidant, I've been a kind of avoid my attachment style has always been really avoidant. And even though I had a really good relationship with my dad, he wasn't always there for me. So I tended to attract men into my life who loved and cherished me, but weren't really there for me. We mirror that relationship we have with our dad. Was your
Mhm.
relationship good with your dad? Did you feel a closeness with him? Did he make you feel seen?
Ooh. Well, I think one thing I have several different father figures in my life. So I have so my dad has now passed away, but he was an alcoholic for my whole life, bipolar. Um he was high functioning at one time. He was very definitely supportive of my creative endeavors, and he was himself like he was actually I would call him a blocked creative, but he was I remember he ended up becoming an attorney, but he'd always wanted to be a writer. And I didn't really know. I just remember when I was finally like told I was like, fuck everybody, I'm going to move to LA and become an actor. My dad was like, I always wanted to be an actor, and then I became a lawyer, or like actor, writer. And I actually weirdly I was in this therapy group, and I met this woman who knew my dad in high school. And she was like, your dad was so cool. He was like James Dean. And I was like, my dad, like, because by the time I met my dad, I mean, knew my dad,
Right.
he went, I mean, I see young pictures of my dad. He looked like Matthew McConaughey. He was really handsome. And then, years of like alcohol abuse and all of the things. He was like John Goodman, or like
Oh
I
wow.
call he was like a combo plate of like John Goodman, Randy Quaid, kind of crazy and personality wise, like in whatever the California movie is with John Goodman where he's like yelling or whatever. That was my dad.
Oh, I know exactly
Big Lebowski.
yes, thank you, with Jeff Daniels, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
then whenever I
hilarious.
see like Randy Quaid with all his like, conspiracy theories or whatever, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, and so it's like kind of like a combo of like the zany, the
Okay.
like
No, that's
cute
a very,
bipolar.
very specific. I'm totally picturing your dad right now. That's a very specific description.
Yes. And
That's outrageous.
I mean, he's like in a lot of ways like delightful. Also a little bit of Alex Jones. It was like Alex Jones, John Goodman, and Randy Quaid, like combo played. I actually have been in a room with Alex Jones and like just the whole thing. Like energetically, he's like whatever my family's gonna get so mad at me for saying this, but but just like that bull, like, I don't know if you know the Enneagram, but he's like an 8 on the Enneagram, just kind of like a bully, kind of crazy, would just like yell anywhere, was funny. Um, when he would go to Barton Springs, he would wear like a Speedo with like full snorkel gear, and then he's like super chubby or whatever, and then he'd had open heart surgery, so he had like this red gash down his chest, and like it was just whatever. And my
Sounds awesome.
yes, and my brothers would be like, "Dad, fat guys aren't supposed to wear Speedos," and he'd be like, he was like, "I have 6 kids, I'm exhausted." Like he was like, "I'm trying to unattract women," like So he's funny, but just a big personality, overwhelming, um, supportive of. Oh, so when I find, yeah, I told you he kind of like gave me the go ahead. He was like, "Yes, like you should go and have fun." But he was kind of like his craziness, like definitely distracted me a lot and took me away from like my creative endeavors, especially like so I went to college at UT, and he and my stepmom and family moved to Austin while I was here. So there was like times where he would check himself into Shoal Creek or whatever, and I would have it was definitely like that Al-Anon kid or whatever, Alateen, where I was like talking to my dad about quitting drinking or just definitely like tending to him. And so that was like very distracting to my creativity. So his sort of craziness, that was that relationship. But then I had my brothers. I have older brothers. I have two younger half brothers too, but I mainly, so my mom, when I was 6, moved to Wisconsin, which is where she's from. We had been living in Houston. And then, so basically, kind of, my brothers were kind of like father figures, I guess. And they were, they're normal, pretty healthy dudes.
That's great.
So I have that. But then my mom had a second marriage, which there was like a lot of like love addiction there. Basically, he was physically abusive, um, just alcoholic, the whole definite sex addict. I would hear arguments about like him cheating. He was very blatant about the cheating. And yeah, would just like tell my mom and whatever. And so he was like insane and a mean person. And
Wow.
so that, so I definitely have like dated like different guys, and they've been like, oh, that was stepdad, or that was my dad. Oh, that was my brother, or like, or I
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. A lot of people don't see it, and I think it's really interesting. Like, if you want to know what's going wrong with your relationship, maybe just like let's first sit down and stop and think about your relationship with your dad, and are you acting out some kind of pattern? Because it's not always the case, but sometimes it is, and sometimes that can help you break the pattern. But it seems great to me. I'm not a psychologist by any means, but it does seem really helpful that you had stable older brothers.
Yes,
I will
yes.
tell you this, my youngest sister, I don't know if I should talk about my siblings. I'll keep this brief. Of the 5 of us, my personal opinion is that she's the most secure, and she grew up with the fewest insecurities and sort of neuroses, because she had 4 much older siblings, and when she was growing up we fought over her. We fought over who
Oh,
was going to play with her, who was so she grew up believing she had value, that she was loved, whereas the rest of us kind of grew up with our parents just, my mom was completely overwhelmed and kind of critical and exhausted, and dad was working a lot, so he wasn't there a lot. And so I think the first 4 of us kind of grew up wondering if we if we were just a nuisance, right? And I've kind of gone through a lot of my dating life in my younger years, just like constantly asking myself, am I being a nuisance? Am I being annoying? Are my needs too much? Am I talking too much? Do I want too much sex? Do I want enough sex? Do I, am I talking too much? Is a lot, because like in my home, I got the sense that my mom just wanted me to shut up and calm down a lot, right? So I'd be like,
Mhm.
I'd be dating some guy, even in high school, even before my addictions got bad. And we'd be having a great time, just hanging out, going to get frozen yogurt, whatever. And all of a sudden I'd stop and kind of replay the last 20 minutes and be like, am I talking too much? Am I being annoying? Am I being, you know what I mean? And that all
Mhm.
comes from my relationship with my mother. Like,
Oh.
yeah, just
Hmm.
always feeling like, but my youngest sister, I think, because she had like four older siblings who were always looking out for her. She seemed to grow up just feeling less insecure than the rest of us, I think.
Yeah, that's a big part, like that people, like if you have like some caregivers in your life or something, even though it's not necessarily your mom or your dad, like that, it takes a village. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think originally, I mean, before we sort of society sort of became the way it became, there was a village. Like we had generational, mom and dad had their mom and dad helping out, and aunts and uncles and all of that. And I just think how much better off everyone would be if they had like grandparents taking over when mom just was at her wit's end and was starting to lose her shit.
yeah. I
If
mean,
grandma could have stepped in.
yeah, we did have that, which very lucky. I had grandparents that were awesome, and I had great grandparents. I know that they had been dysfunctional with my mom. I always think that's so interesting because like my nephews and nieces like loved my dad. They would be like, Zany, he's so fun. And like and we were like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I would not have wanted my mother's mother to be my mother, and she was, but she was a pretty cool grandma, right? Like there's just
yeah,
something weird that happens. And my mother, while it was difficult being her daughter, to be honest, she's such a great grandma.
yeah.
She's got nothing but love for the grandkids. I'm like, where was this person when I was growing up,
I know.
So, so how many guys did you date before I mean, like, did you continue on this path of dating, like, junkies and uh, guys like that for a long time? Did you just go from one to, because that's, I picture in my head like a sex and love addict was going from one unhealthy relationship to another. And was the sex addictive too, or was it mostly the love and relationships?
So I've always just said it's love and relationships because I've been in, meetings where I've been like, I don't relate to somebody like, hey, I'm gonna go on Bumble and hook up with all these men. Like I'm like, or like specifically for that. And I've never I haven't I did like Bumble like one time for a week and I was like, it was too overwhelming. But like, or just it was always like I had to feel like I was in love with it, and I would like project this. Sometimes I would like, or I'd meet somebody and just project like, oh, this is like we feel so connected. Like if this feels so right, I mean, why? Let's just expedite this situation and like get. And so I heard some quote where it's like scratch a love addict, you'll get a sex addict, scratch a sex addict, you'll get a sexual anorexic or what all the things. And so initially I used to be like, I'm just a love addict. But I'm just like, well, if you project a fantasy onto somebody and you expedite, you're just like, oh, let's have sex because we this has got to be right or whatever, then it's still, I don't know, I still think that it crosses over into sex addiction or something. You're wanting this, I don't know. I
Well,
just kind
yeah, for a lot of people, they're all tied in together. And I know for me, I used sex as sort of my main form of intimacy. It was a pseudo intimacy, but even certainly before I got sober, the sooner I could get into bed with a guy, the sooner I could feel like we were intimate. Of course, you wake up hungover and sober, and the guy that you felt so close to the night before, like you can barely look him in the face, right? You're like all
yeah.
shy and awkward with them. But even in sobriety, I wanted to get to the sex as quickly as possible because then I could feel intimate and connected. And when it was over, like, depending on how many times we'd done it, in bed I felt very relaxed and very open and very heart-centered. And um but I couldn't, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's a facade, but it's a fraction of what real intimacy is, right? You need the emotional intimacy, and you need to get to know the person. Otherwise the sex is just it's just kind of a sliver of the intimacy you could be having. And how real is it anyway? I mean, in the end, how real is it? It's people tend to drop, men especially, I think, drop a lot of their walls when they're having sex, but they tend to go right back up if you're not genuinely intimate with that person. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'm trying to think how long in sobriety before I really had like an open-hearted, let's really get to know each other connection. And it was probably 2003. So I would have been 6 years sober. Is that right? Yeah, 6 years sober before I had the kind of like where I was really getting to know the guy, and the sex was just sort of gravy, frosting on the cake. Up
Yeah.
until then, it was all about the sex, and then if I could, slowly let the guy into my heart, but nobody ever stuck around long enough to do that. So I was 6 years sober before, yeah, and then he dumped me because he was a closet alcoholic, and that broke my heart so bad that it sent me like much more than two steps backwards. I was reeling after that, and it took another um, 3 or 4 years before I could really date anyone seriously again.
Mhm.
So what happened to you after this, a heroin addict? What'd you do then?
Well, so he ended up like after I ended it, then I kind of didn't date. And then a year after that, I think I went on a couple dates. I actually, and that was the beginning. I went on a couple dates with this comedian, not in any kind of recovery programs. And I don't think he has alcoholism, but I do think he's a sex addict. But anyway, I went on a couple dates with him, but it was like, and then we didn't go on any dates and no sex with that or at that time, but basically mostly like no dating. And then that guy that I dated, he actually committed suicide. And
A
so,
heroin addict?
yes. And
Oh,
it was like he slit his wrists and like laid by the 10 freeway. And it was just like, and I was like devastated. I was like, and I hadn't seen him for a year, but it just was like, I was like, I'm never dating in the rooms again. Like I was like, that's it. I did occasionally go on like a few dates here and there, but like just like didn't get into anything long term. I mean, until two or a year and a half ago. Like was like, no.
so more than a decade, like well, more than a decade.
Yeah.
You
There
didn't
was a
date, you haven't dated anyone
no,
seriously.
no, 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 no. I've dated people seriously, just not in the rooms.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can see that. I mean, there's nothing more traumatic and tragic than suicide, and especially to me, somebody who's using because they're not. I don't know if it's worse. Somehow it seems worse because they're not thinking clearly. I mean, it's
Hmm.
one thing to be thinking clearly and you kill yourself. That's a horrible tragedy. But if you're not thinking clearly and you kill yourself, you don't even know what you're doing. It's just so tragic.
Yeah.
And then in a year, a year is not long for you to have not seen him. It must have been traumatic for you to have to experience that.
It was traumatic. And it
Yeah.
was very
I didn't, I'm like you. I didn't, I kind of made a choice not to date a lot of people in recovery, partly because I thought I have enough issues on my own. I don't need,
yeah.
seems like two of us. Are you serious? No.
Right. Plus, I found like when I was going out with him, and I was wanting to like, I mean, there's a lot of meetings in LA, but like I would run into him at the meetings and I'd be like, oh God. And it was just like, I'd be back in it. So then it was like, oh, okay, I've got to go to just all women's meetings. And it was just like, I don't want to, then it was like, I don't want to shit where I eat. Like
Yeah.
I need to have a place where I can talk about what's going on and not worry that it'll get back to him or run into him and like just all the things. So yeah, that really affected me. So I again was like not not dating. And I think I had started to go to at least some Al-Anon at that point. And then, motherfucker, I, so I started, so then I started doing stand-up comedy. And as I said, I'd gone on a few dates. It was like, um, with that comedian. But then it was like, no, I'm not really feeling it. Um, and then, but we were in the same circle. And then I ran into him and I was like, oh, I started doing stand up and we decided to write together. Oops. Um and basically we wrote together we'd been writing together for like 6 months and he probably was most like my dad, like has a real like aggressive, like kind of mean, like a mean personality. And he was like headliner and the whole thing. I do think he's kind of hacky now. But at the time I was like, oh, this is a comedian and I need help and whatever. And so there's that like kind of power dynamic. And I remember one day we were writing something and then he was like, why didn't anything ever happen with us or what or whatever. And we got in this kind of fight and then we had sex. And then
Wait, back up. I just have to know, was the sex good? Because if you're fighting and then you have sex frequently, I'm sorry, it's good.
it was fun.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just have to know. Go on with the story.
Yeah. So then that and just like all of it together, just kind of like plus oxytocin. I don't think we've talked about that, but like that just kind of like I was just like bonded and like, oh, I'm in love. And again, I was like, oh, we're gonna be this like touring stand-up comedian couple, like, and it's gonna be great. This guy who's, never been married, he was like, oh, what did he say? I can ruin my own life, but I'm not going to ruin anybody else's or whatever. Like he was just like, never, basically it was like, I'm never going to get married or whatever. And
Uh,
anyway, I was like, no, this will happen. And, and so,
to me, like your train of thought is kind of logical. Like you're writing together, you're both comedians, you're gonna you kind of become a power couple. I mean, it just falling in love is one thing, but I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of envisioning a certain lifestyle and saying the lifestyle I want is compatible with this person, and that's adding to why I think we should be a couple. I actually think more women should probably take into consideration, is this person compatible with the lifestyle I envision? But I could see from your perspective, like if you're a love addict, you're just looking for all the reasons to make this thing the fairy tale,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I
And,
could see that.
and when they're very blatantly like, no, that's not gonna
Yeah, especially when they're straight up telling you, I'm not, I'm going to ruin my own life, but I'm not going to ruin yours. I'm not going to get married. And you're like, yeah, no, this is going to happen. That doesn't seem like the healthiest response. I don't know.
right. Yeah, I was like, no. And then he did actually like dump me. I think he still thought we were gonna like write together. He like I think what happened, okay, there was this moment where he did get like kind of tearful with me or like kind of real vulnerable. And I have to say internally I did freak out and was like, oh, I want to run away. But he was
Well,
but not vulnerable about the relationship. He was vulnerable about like where he was in his career and like all these things. And like he was
and
kind
did
of
that scare you because men just don't get vulnerable very often and you didn't know how to handle it, or
at that time, yes. Now I'm pro, but at the time I was like, but I didn't do any. I mean, maybe he picked up on it. I don't know. Maybe later on he had like shame attack, or maybe it had nothing to do with this. But like pretty much like 2 days later, he called me and he was like, "Oh, I had this girlfriend that I had met on MySpace years ago, and she came in town, and like he was like, we decided we're in love and we're gonna be together." And I was like, "Oh," and he was like, "So," because we were supposed to go to a party and like I don't know, and I was just like. I was like crushed. I remember I was working as a massage therapist, I was working at the Four Seasons at the time, and like I gave a couples massage or did a couples massage, and like the lady was like, what the fuck was that? Like, I don't know. She just complained and they were like, what happened? I don't know what I did. I mean, I didn't like do anything like
Oh my God.
pervy, but apparently it was not a good massage. Although sometimes people would just not gel with there. But anyway, I was like not doing well. Like felt like that abandonment, rupture was just like crazy. So then that was when I started. I was like, I think 30 at that time, and I just went straight ahead to SLAA.
Uh,
And I was going to a lot of meetings, working the steps, went through the withdrawal. I had like a sponsor who was like, you're not quit hugging people. Cause that was another thing. I was a big like starer and flirt. Like I was flirt with people I was not interested in and hug and whatever. And they were
was it
just
like a
like,
validation thing, like flirting with people that you weren't interested in? Was it like because it gave you validation, or
I think so, but it was really unconscious for me. Like I didn't even realize that I did it until like now I look back and go, "Oh my God, that was crazy." But yeah, I was really sending people the wrong message. Yeah. So yeah, I think it was
so you had a sponsor? You went to SLAA and got a new sponsor for that particular program,
I did.
and they were
Yeah.
a good sponsor.
Yes. And went through the steps and like worked it, all the things. I was still like it was really hard because I really worked hard on like not running into, my qualifier. I mean, so they call the people, whoever, you've heard that term, right?
No,
Whoever. Oh, okay. So like
no.
for Al-Anon and any of the like sort of codependent process programs, like whoever like sort of drives you or whatever person gets you to go to that program from their like whatever your interaction with them, that's your qualifier. So
Okay.
he was like my qualifier, although I had a lot of qualifiers, but like he was like the one where I
Okay.
was like, okay, I'm going to SLAA, I'm going to work through the steps. So I did all that work and did like a thorough, I had done a sex inventory in AA, but like then this one I was like, okay, I mean, it was just a really deep. And then I was still just struggling. I remember I had this oh I had this good friend of mine who was or not, no, she's not a good friend. At the time I thought she was a good friend, but it was like somebody who I ran around and did stand up with, a woman. And this got the comedian, I'm just calling him the comedian. I don't want to say his name, but he's
You
not
want to say
like,
his like his first name, like call him John or whatever. No, we're not going to know who he is.
oh, Jimmy. His name's Jimmy. But anyway, we had been, I was friends with this woman, I don't know if it was on purpose with him, but he ended up asking her out. And like, I was just like, again, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know if he'd like broken up with the MySpace woman or whatever the fuck happened, but he asked out this woman who was like, I had been like telling her all about like my withdrawal and this, I think I took her to a sex and love addict meeting. I mean, she knew like the whole story. She hadn't known him personally, and then she like ran into him at one of the clubs, and then he asked her out for coffee, and then she ended up, I remember it was like I look back and I'm like so sad. Like why? Because also he's 15 years older than me. So it's just I'm like, why did I waste my time and my young, attractive years? But anyway, whatever. But basically, yeah, he asked her out and she told me in front of this other comedian, and I turned to her and I go, I said, it feels like you're repeatedly stabbing me over and over again. And she goes, I know. Um, and then she goes, this is just business. And I was like, and then I was like blacking out and like PTSD and just like all of it. And that I had been working SLA, I think for like 9 months at that point. And then at that point, I ended up calling the Meadows. The Meadows is this place, it's like a rehab out in Arizona, and they do like workshops and you can and it's like trauma workshops and a lot of like like I think when Harvey Weinstein got in trouble, he checked into the Meadows and but they do like week-long workshops that are like they're like $1,500 or whatever, but it's really good. And so basically I called them and did like I drove out there and I did this like week-long workshop called Survivors, and it really helped me. And so
That's
yeah, I think it was like all of it, like betrayal with the friend, like her just being like whatever, and like get and just like I was like horrified. I felt abandoned by everybody, and just like um I definitely think I think he was kind of a combo plate of a lot of them, kind of the bad men that I'd been exposed to. Like,
combo plate.
yeah, kind of. I mean, I've talked to my mom a little bit more about her second husband and how he was like very blatant with like the cheating and everything like that. And even though this guy wasn't we weren't together at that time, but just the blatantness of him asking out somebody that like I was friends with, and
Oh
like
yeah.
I'm pretty sure like he
It
knew.
cuts. That
Yeah.
does cut. I remember when I had broken up with my first great love, Joe, and we were officially broken up, and I had that all to deal with. And then a friend of mine, he invited her to come stay with him, and she told me about it. She went out there, and but she didn't like date him or whatever, and she told me about it right away. And I just broke my heart. It's that thing about I don't know, being replaced or something, or I don't know. We all have that sort of.
Okay, so I went and did that trauma work. I mean, it does sound like so I've taken this sex addict course, and it was about betrayal trauma, and like how it was more about when you're with your partner and they cheat, or they're doing something and you're not knowing what's happening, and then you're like, oh, like so you're so attached to this person, and then you're like, wait. So I think there was a little bit of that, and it was definitely like a PTSD feeling. Like I was just like, yeah, like black and my friend. I mean, I think there was some of that where I'd like intimately disclosed, and then she was like, yeah, whatever, like get over it. This is business, and I'm like, you're fucking, and then I mean, I'm not friends with her anymore. I was like, bye, bitch. But anyway, um, and then but uh what else happened? I ended up okay. I did the meadows. I was still like doing the work. I was in it. I'm healthy. Da 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 da. And I think like I can't remember how long I was apart from him, but all I know is I ran into him at the Comedy Store Christmas party, and like we made out, and then we got back together. And it was like and it was it was like probably I think a year after I did the meadows, and I like blamed the relationship end or just like whatever had happened. I was like, it was because I was a love addict, and now I've done the work, and now we can have a healthy relationship. Wrong. And and so got back together with them. And although we weren't actually, we were in the beginning, it was just kind of like we weren't like officially together, But anyway, we actually like officially were like, okay, we're together or whatever. And then so did date and kind of like tried to, I mean, we were like trying, I don't know if he was, but actually it felt like healthier. You know what I mean? Or it was, he would go on, he was basically gone every weekend, but I was spent time with him every week. Everything seemed to be going well. And then I think that was like for 6 months or something like that. And then he ended up this is really mean. And I think he's like a mean, deranged person. But and he invited me to a comedy show that he was headlining. There's a couple people that opened for him, and there was this one woman who opened for him, and she was really not funny. And I'd seen her at open mics. And I mean, she like there are some people who bomb, and like that you can be like, oh, they're still funny, but they bomb. She does not have is not aware of the concept of funny. She's just not. And and so she opened, but she was very attractive. And I was like, and I got this real like bubbly, that intuitive feeling like, oh, something's happening. I feel bad about this. And then I was like, up at the front of the comedy club and they were I saw her get off stage and she was kind of like beaming at him while he was on stage. And I was like, I was having that like PTSD response. And then basically ended up, then they saw them have a conversation and I was like, something's going on here. And then I ended up running into her later and I was like, hey, how'd you get that spot? And she was like, oh, the headliner gave it to me. And I was like, if he gave it to you, I was like, I'm actually funny. And like,
Yeah.
and then so I was like, if you're gonna put that up on, I was like, what's going on? Because she's not funny. So something's happening. And then he was like gaslighting me and this and this and that. And I was just like in full trauma. And also at the time, my dad actually the alcoholism was progressing and I think he actually went to jail at that point, which is like the first time I think that that had happened, or like for an extended like a month or something like that. And so like my trauma, I was in LA but like just I was kind of like at my like trauma set, like it was like too much and I was like I'm gonna leave this. I was like bye. And so I left. um and I had like a lot of unmanageability in my life, like lost my place to live just because I'd gotten a bad roommate. There was just a lot of things that I wasn't paying attention to, and like roommate had stopped paying rent. And anyway, it was just like my life was like on fire. And I was like, I need to focus on my life. And so ended that. But then he started to be like really like bullying. Like he was like, oh, you're not going to perform at the Comedy Store and I'm going to like, he was like going to destroy a lot, or that's what he threatened to me. And so I ended up moving. That was part of the reason. I don't know if it was the reason. I know that there was I was just, what I now know is that I had betrayal trauma. Now that I know it was like PTSD. And I know that when I ended up moving back to Austin. I moved back at the beginning of 2014. And basically, it was kind of a weird story too. I had moved into a new place in LA, and somebody told me about Airbnb. And it was another like kind of like crazy story of like, even anyway, I basically, um, I put my place on Airbnb and I was like wanting to do something. I was like, I need to leave here. And I don't think I was like, necessarily wanting to go back to Texas yet, but basically I ended up talking to Marianne Williamson in person and I was like, oh, like all this stuff is happening and I'm thinking about leaving LA, but I don't know. And she was like, I want you to just pray. She goes, just get down on your knees. She talked to me for like 20 minutes.
Where
And
did you meet her?
she would speak weekly at like this theater in LA.
Okay.
And I just talked to her afterwards. And she's very approachable. I like adore her. And like
I
when she
love
was,
her.
yeah, so sweet. I am that way where I'll like go up to people and then be like,
That's awesome.
hey, can you help me? And so anyway, she talked to me and she was like, I want you to just pray. And so I just kept praying, like, I need guidance. I don't know what to do, but I'm like not doing well. And so randomly, somebody contacted me from my like Airbnb. It was like the first one I got, and they were like, "Hey, I want to rent out your place for 3 months." And it was for twice the amount that I was paying in rent. And so I was like, "Cool, I was like, I'm gonna go back to Texas and just take a little break and like get centered and like be around my family and whatever, do some stand up there and leave." And that's what I did. And then I ended up staying.
And so you're year 7 or 8.
I was actually 7. Okay, I figured it out. I was 7. I would be turning 8 that November. So I was, yeah, 7 years sober. Um, and at that point, I was like, okay, then what happened? And this is probably, I think the program that helped me the most is Adult Children of Alcoholics. Because that
Okay.
really deals with a lot of trauma work and inner child and healthy, loving parent. And so I finally really felt like I got some like ground in my sobriety. Like I felt like it turned the key because I stopped putting myself into like really traumatic situations. For the most, I mean, sometimes I would still get, but for the most part, like had a little bit of like the pause button before I'd be like, oh, let me raise forward. And then I would say finally, in 2017, I met a guy Um, we are not together now, but I would say it was like definitely a person I like. He was just significantly healthier than any other guy, and cherishing and loving, and like, it didn't end up working out, but I would say it was a really good relationship.
And
And
that adult children of alcoholics gave you a lot of insight into like just your patterns and that kind of thing.
patterns and trauma. I think
Uh-huh.
like looking at the beneath, like why we make these decisions,
Uh-huh.
like what, like I think a lot of it is like this unconscious like need like to like go back to the pain and like maybe like heal it or something. And then there's like these blinders, like not seeing it. And so I feel like the inner child writing, like before you make a decision, like doing writing with your inner child, like, and going like, okay, how do I feel about that? How do I feel around this person? Oh, I feel that like super excitement. Like I've definitely like gone out with people who have been like, oh, I feel like I'll still like test it. Like you typically for me, if I feel really excited about somebody, there's like different levels, but if it's like really excited, they're sociopaths or they're psychopaths. Um, and
Whoever you dated afterward, did you have that that sort of chemistry, that spark, and did you have to like stop and question, is this healthy or not?
yeah, okay. So I usually even though I feel like I've had those experiences where I feel the excitement, still like whatever in me, the sort of like, I still want to check it out. What I mean, if I feel the spark or like, and there's different levels of the spark when it's like really high. I call like the really high level, like triple threat, like where I'm like, okay, we actually have like genuine like DNA chemistry, like DNA, our DNA, like we would make healthy babies or something like that. But then I'm also like, but then there's also some trauma. And then I'm also like, oh, but they are a sociopath. Like if it's really, really high, and then, oh, they probably have sex addiction. Like they probably have, there's like several things going on if I'm so attracted to
Uh-huh.
them. And then there is some kind of like lower, like, oh, this is probably just like a Peter Pan, just, possible drug addiction, but like,
Yeah.
but a nice guy, but just a little bit fucked up, like there's just like different levels, like, oh,
Yeah.
this will be someone fun, but like that I can't, and there's like kind of a like little, like, ooh, what's that? But so it's different levels. And so I will still, for me, I'll still go on the date because I'm like, I want to check because I'm like, I feel like I'm grounded enough in my recovery to be like, I'm not going to act on it until
Right.
I know who they are and like really get to know them and develop intimacy and all of the things. But I want to check out if like something, if I'm right, if my little like sensor is like on point.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, just check it out. Oh, and then I'll like find out, I'll be like, oh, they're married or like whatever. I'll be like, oh, I felt like really attracted to that person. And then I'll like later find, but I have been able to like, go on the dates and I'm like, I'm checking it out. I'm like, feel really attracted, but I feel like I felt this feeling before. And then I'm like, something else is probably going on. And I'm just like, I always go wait for it. And then I'm like, there we go. That's what I needed.
Right.
Okay. And then I'm like, I'll see ya, you
Right.
know, and yeah, and I don't get like physically involved with them. Well, and so now I am engaged.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we started out as friends. He is 12 years younger than me. And so I was not looking at him like, oh, let's date. He also so he is in the rooms. And we started out as friends. I always thought it was fun. Like I felt like he was crushing on me from the beginning. I was like, you always stared at me in meetings. He said he was trying to figure out how old I was. And I was like, fuck you, whatever. And he's very like honest, but hilarious. And basically we were friends first. We actually became like action buddies and in the money program and because he was doing really well. And I was like, what's that guy doing? And so we would text each other our actions and then we just started talking and he's very funny. And then basically, yeah, one night, like I remember one night I left a meeting and I was like, oh, where's Dan? And I was like, where'd he go? And then I called him because I was like, oh, and then he goes, I'm at Casa de Luz, come over. And so I met him over at Casa de Luz and we were like talking and then we walked outside and he goes, okay. Oh, I do have to tell you. I read, okay, I've read these dating books by, do you know Dr. Pat Allen? Have you heard of this woman?
Mm-mm.
Okay, she is in LA. I kind of look at her, she's like 90 now, but like as a therapist, like mentor, and she's a therapist. She does some seminars and she has some kind of like unconventional ideas, but it's like she talks about like yin and yang and energies and all these things in her
I
books.
like the
And
sound of her because I'm very much into that polarity. I'm
yes.
a big believer in the importance of polarity. Yeah, so she sounds great.
Yes. And she's a long time, she's like 50 years sober. And so Dan actually had bought all of her books because he was like, I'm because he was like, who is this woman, Pat Allen, that you talked to? And I was like, oh, sure. Anyway, he bought all the books because he was like gonna figure out how to like seduce me or whatever. And so he bought all the books, yeah. And then he ended up, yeah, he asked me outside of Casa de Luz, and I was sort of like, I was like, well, I don't, and then because I hadn't thought of him that way, and then I was like, okay, I'll give him a chance, and so we went hiking. We went like way out of town. He like researched this thing. And yeah, we just kept, it was kind of healthy. I don't think like I waited 3 months because I'd already known him like 6 months,
Sure.
but it was like, oh, we probably dated for like a month, and then we were like, okay, we're together. And then so basically, yeah, we dated for a year. We did start we've been going to couples therapy. We
Nice.
decided to do like premarital like counseling. So this is like the deepest I've ever like worked on a relationship because yeah, definitely like some shit has come up and we like break
That's amazing. I think that's amazing. Like I got back into therapy once I realized that I was getting serious about this guy. I thought I've had 17 years of therapy, 16, 17 years of therapy, but it's been years. And I thought I just need someone to check in with because I've got another layer of this onion. I still have some trust issues. I realize I still am probably in denial about what exactly my issues around men are. I need someone to check in with, right? So I just got a therapist. Didn't last very long. And then he and I went to a therapist together just because I think that it's a great thing to, when you're in a healthy relationship, sometimes because relationships do bring up your stuff. Why
yes.
not get a professional to help you work it through? It just happens easier and with less stress and tension, I think, because you can work it through if you're really emotionally intelligent and if you have a 12-step background, you can figure out a lot of stuff, right? But
Mhm.
if you get a therapist, you just figure it out quicker with less fighting, probably, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we actually realized it was so funny. Like when we went to the therapist, we were like, "Oh, we've only gotten in 3 fights," and the therapist was like, "Oh, really?" Because apparently, I don't, he was like kind of like we hadn't gotten to the deeper issues, but we have more like constructive arguments. Like we would have these like big, like it was like three like big things where I'd be like, "Bye, I'm gonna leave," and then and that's me. I'm like, "Pain, bye."
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah. It's just easier to check out. I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
yeah.
See ya, hang up, click. I'm hanging up now. Goodbye. That's it. Like, yeah.
Right. And so now we've been working through it. It's really bad to like fight or like to have arguments. Like
Mhm.
you're, because like, I guess like our therapist interpreted us not having fights as us not talking about things or speaking
Mhm.
up about our needs, which she was right.
Right.
And we were kind of being very polite, and then it would result in these like big fights.
Mm.
And where I'd be like, and then so he taught us like more like, okay, when things are, upsetting you to like bring it up and
Have like you didn't have great role models either. You didn't have like this like two parents who had this loving bond and they were like really there for each other. And then when your mom did get married, like didn't sound like somebody you really thought she should be tied to. Like you didn't. I think that
no,
definitely implants a certain
yeah.
fear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely am. Like I definitely have, and that's actually recently come up in therapy, just like this fear of being trapped or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's not, it's around a lot of stuff. I'm just like, oh, imprisonment, or like, well, that sounds like trap. Like, and so, and there's some memories along with, that go along with that. Yeah. I was like, there's so many. Let's do therapy for a year and see, and just all the things, and just like make sure like we're making the right decision.
Yeah.
And
And then when you're on that altar and you just can't wait, like what I could not wait to marry him. I was on the verge of tears through the whole ceremony because I was so happy and so excited. And had we gotten there 3 or 6 months earlier, I still would have had a few fears, you know what I mean? Like you want to wait until you know, like I can't wait to be up there. Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
excited for you. I don't know if we talk about sex very much or even relationships. I know that I went to a conference, the Crested Butte Mountain Conference, and one year they had one panel or one meeting on sex and dating and sobriety. And of all the, I don't know, 100 meetings I went to year after year at those conferences, I never saw one that was so sold out, standing room only, packed to the gills. Like everybody in sobriety wants to know how to make sex and dating work. But it's not something we really talk about a lot. I mean, if you do your 4-step, but how many people in the program are actually doing their 4-step and their 5th step, right? Like not that many. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why I'm doing this series, I think. And so I so appreciate your candor and your openness. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So I wanted to say thank you again so much for this. And good luck with everything. Good luck with your congratulations on your upcoming marriage, whenever it is. And yeah, just thanks for everything.
Thank you.